What's going on, guys? Adam Menner here from Varsity Education. So today we're going to talk about an example of an NBA draft workout. As you guys know, this past year we trained the NBA draft and we were very successful. We did it here in New York City, and I just wanted to work through that and some of the ideologies behind how we created an example workout, so not an entire program. It's important to note that during a training program that the variables are going to vary extremely. You're not always going to have the right circumstances. You're not always going to be able to be in a gym such as this, all the equipment readily available for you. Player schedules change, agents want to know different things. So today I'm going to show you my thought process of how we can make do with the situation at hand. So anytime you come in, you have to know what's going on. And I separate it into three separate parts here. So the first one is always on court, right? Usually you're working with another skill trainer and it's a collaborative effort. So knowing that it's a collaborative effort, we always start on the court. But on the court, I know I'm not going to have all the recovery tools that I need. So knowing that, what we do is usually everything we do with our athletes is standing. So I know, okay, here we're going to stand. Why is this? Standing in terms of our warm-ups, our on-court warm-ups, our speed and our power work. Because again, a lot of the players are long, they're lengthy. Maybe we have a mat, sometimes we don't. We try to bring the mats, but they don't want to go from standing up and then back down. So I want to make sure that they feel the most comfortable. Remember, there's much more on the line and you're trying to put the athletes in the best position to succeed, both mentally and physically. So we do our whole standing warm-up here. The second part we do is all of our plyometrics series, usually in place. We use the basketball as a reference in terms of the court. So a lot of those are going to consist of our stationary plyos. After we do our stationary plyos, we get the brain going a little bit. Then we'll do some sprint positional work. And what that consists of is again, we'll show in later videos, that's just all of our posture and sprint work that we utilize before we sprint. And it's something to note with basketball players, especially players who are a little bit of higher ability, meaning their peak power output is a lot higher. They're in terms of their nervous systems are wired a little bit differently, right? You need to incorporate some of these basic technical drills. Here's why. Again, neuroplasticity in the brain, they're going to be more susceptible. You're going to wake the brain up a little bit. You're going to be able to do different things with them that are going to help get them more engaged. It's not necessarily, I'm building your technical ability to sprint. This is already a high-level athlete. I'm just trying to give them what they need. And in this case, you'll see that they need a lot of that work because they're so exhausted from training, because they still haven't had proper structured training. So we do a lot of our technical sprint work. Then, knowing the distance of the court, you might have to work on just acceleration. So we do a lot of our acceleration-based work here. Acceleration refers to we're working on our four-step. So meaning our four powerful steps in the ground, changing the trajectory, dropping our shin angle. A lot of the things we do is from a 2-point because I don't want longer athletes to get too compressed down on the ground. So a lot of the things we do is we're just working on trajectory and we're just cleaning things up there, because you have to remember, for the NBA draft, it's a test, right? And we're trying to get these guys to do well on the test. So we're giving them a lot of the answers. So we work technically on 4 steps, starts, and then we were fortunate to bring the lasers, not every single time, but we use what's called fusion sport. And fusion sport is the official technology of the NBA. And now this is all I had. So knowing that, then we did some of our power work. And depending on what phase we are in, and we've talked about that in the past, whether you're more accelerating, you're in that transition phase, or max velocity, that's going to determine what sprint sequence you use, what exercises, and what power. But typically for acceleration, because we want them to do well in the test, the vertical jump, and their 30-yard sprint, or excuse me, their 75-foot sprint, we're going to do more longer ground contact time-based exercises. So that's our sequence and our thought process on the court. Hey, what's going on, guys? Hopefully you find the information in this video useful. We're trying to put out consistent content and information regarding training principles, systems, and business strategy that you can use in your training business on a weekly basis. If you find it useful, go ahead, kick the like button, subscribe, do whatever they tell you to do. Let's get back to the video. Now, if they have to travel, right, let's say you have to drive to a weight room. Hopefully you can do it all in one place, which we were very fortunate to do in the city. Now, we just went upstairs and we had the weight room. So their bodies were already positioned. They already felt pretty good. Their brain was woken up, excuse me. They were sweating. So we only had to do a few things in terms of weight selections for our warm-ups and what exercises we picked. But looking here, if you guys can see, this is a real training session, June 22nd, right? And when this was our day 2, I knew, okay, I had a lot of players, I didn't have a lot of space. So something you have to be conscious of as a coach is you have to know, okay, what access to equipment do I have? Can I use these things? There's other people training. Maybe they don't want to be by other people. So we had to consolidate and make do. So what I'm really chasing here is adaptation. I'm not necessarily chasing the right exercises. So I know that they need overall volume, intensity, frequency, and what again is the adaptation that I'm looking to train. So what we would do is we would set them up in racks. Now here's something that we noticed, right? A lot of the times I like to pick exercises that don't place a lot of eccentric stress on these individuals because they're doing so much skill training, because we need to make sure they're prepared for the test, because we did a lot of accelerating and a lot of jumping. So we picked a lot of exercises that were isometric based. And we split it up. We would have a primary, and we would pair it sometimes with a power base, because here on the court we didn't have the weights and we couldn't bring weights down. So maybe our power is longer ground contact time, but it was in body weight. And then we came up here, we did a primary. So for this particular day, this is a lower body day. So we do, just from the ground, we would do a hex bar deadlift. And we would just pair it with a dumbbell squat jump. Right, because I'm chasing an adaptation. I know, okay, what phase of the sprint are we in? We're trying to improve acceleration. So I know they need longer ground contact times. I know that in the weight room here now we're building raw power and peak power output. So we're doing hex bar deadlifts, right? And we're doing squat jumps. The isometrics refers to a lot of the supplemental work. So now, once I get to my supplemental work, what we would do here is we would do a lot of split stance, but a specific positions that I felt like they needed. So a lot of the times, and we'll talk about this in later videos, basketball players, right, are stuck in what's called a late stance propulsion. So almost in the sense of where that left side, they're always pushing off of the ground. And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. So I would pick exercises that I knew that they needed to work on. So we would do a lot of 2-point RDLs. So a 2-point RDL is if I'm here and I have a dumbbell in my right hand, I bring my left foot, not directly in front, but a little out to the side, and I would shift my hip back, right? I'm trying to recapture a little bit of internal rotation, exhaling all of my air as I shift my hip back just a little bit. This exercise, again, felt really good to not only lengthen the hamstrings, regain internal rotation, and help, again, dissociate the pelvis a little bit so they didn't feel like they were just getting a lot of compression from their deadlifting bilaterally. Then we would do split stance, iso holds. Again, just developing raw power, but also the tendons, connective tissue around the joint. And then lastly, for our accessory work consisted of a lot of tendon strength. So this was anything from a TKE, this could have been a band push down, this could be a band curl, a pull apart, what have you. And I know what you're thinking. Well, they need more volume here. Where's their upper work? So forth and so on. With this, you got to remember, I'm chasing the adaptation. I'm trying to get them to be good at the test, but also I want them to be healthy. In band work, in blood flow, and iso works, right? I have my main neural output here. I do my supplemental work, some positional work, some tendon strengthening work, and a lot of blood flow because they need to be able to recover from workout to workout. And this is just an example of one training session. The last thing that we would do in the weight room is I always try to do some type of low impact work capacity. Luckily, we had access to something as a ski erg. As you guys can see here in the gym, we have ski ergs down over here, our assault bikes, right, our Concept 2 bikes. And we use these a lot in terms of we don't want to stress the nervous system too much, or we don't want them to experience too much stress through all of their running. And so you can still get the same cardiovascular output, but it's not as taxing on your joints. And so that was something that was really important to improve their shape because they're already doing all of their skill work and they're already doing all of that high impact intensity work as it pertains to basketball. So on the ski erg, we did a lot of interval work. Right? Why? Because the intensity can be a little bit higher. Versus on the court, while they're training, yes, they're going hard, it's still sub-max because it's not fully a game, right? So that's their practice or their operating speed. And they need to be able to sustain that as they get closer and closer to the actual draft, and they have workouts in between. So they essentially always need to stay ready during this draft process. The ski erg then, we would do something like 6 to 10 rounds. at 100 meters and you're trying to get in the same amount of seconds every single time with maybe a 1 to 3 work to rest ratio. So their output is extremely high, matching, again, the high intensity of that particular session with a big break, and then we're just advancing, right, in rounds week after week. So this is just an example, guys, of a particular workout, not a full draft program, but it's important to note that I want you guys to understand is if you are working with high-level athletes, if you are part of a draft process, or even if you are in a private sector facility, you're going to need to be able to make audibles and ad-lib on the fly because you're not always going to have access to the equipment, to technology, and even to space. So here's an example of a lower body NBA draft workout. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and comment below.